Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and show a little video about Anduril so that people have a sense of what Anduril is and does.
Just in it down.
All right, that was a really exciting video. So just want to start our fireside chat today, Palmer. So excited about doing that and getting to know a little more about you and some of the things you've done with your company. That's pretty exciting. So we'll go ahead and kick it off. My first question I have for you is, after your latest Series E funding round, Anduril Industries value jumped to $2 billion, nearly doubling its last valuation, which took place in June 2021. Can you tell us a little more about Anduril, some of your current efforts and key initiatives?
Definitely. Also, slight correction. We actually raised $1.5 billion in our last round at a valuation of $8.5 billion. So we're doing pretty well right now. I think it's because we've had an incredible track record of really delivering major products to solve major problems that the Department of Defense has. And, we just did $1 billion contract with SOCOM to do a lot of their counter drone work in the US and around the world. And we've got a lot of stuff to announce in the near future that's at a similar level. So, oh shoot, I forgot. What was the question? Ask again.
Just talk about some of your current efforts that you're doing.
Sure. So Anduril started with a foundation of building AI software that enables us to build AI hardware products. So we actually have about twice as many people working on software as we do hardware, despite being a company that on the surface is mostly selling hardware products. Typically, we're building products, whether it's counter drone systems or drones or robot submarines, that are only able to do what they do because of advanced artificial intelligence that's processing data, making decisions about what to do next, and turning the high level decisions of human operators into the exact optimal low level kind of minute to minute tactics to execute on that vision. We've been expanding into a lot of different areas over the last couple of years. We've moved from just doing base security, border security, critical infrastructure security, counter drone work, to doing a lot of things on the offensive side as well. We just announced a new line of loitering munitions that are carrying a very significant warhead and can fly for a very long period of time. We've announced that we're doing some really interesting stuff in the missile space. We've really expanded our undersea capabilities. We're building currently right now a vehicle called the Dive XL AUV, the extra large autonomous undersea vehicle. That's a robot submarine the size of a school bus with a range of thousands of miles that can dive deeper than any human submarine that the military has could ever dream of going. And we've got a few other things that I can't talk about that are going to be a total game changer for the way that we defend air, land, and sea from the threats that are emerging from our strategic adversaries. And the best part about what we're doing right now, to me, is that we're reusing so much of the AI work that we've built in the past. We're not a defense contractor. We're a defense product company. We use our own money to decide what to build rather than relying on taxpayers to fund all of our R&D. And that means that we have an incentive to reuse the things that we've built in the past to the greatest extent possible, which means we move faster, we move cheaper. It's the opposite of the incentives you get with a typical cost plus defense contracting structure, where nobody wants to reuse anything. Nobody wants to nobody wants to remake anything in a way that makes them less money. And so unfortunately, our contracting systems over the last few decades have often rewarded rebuilding things that already exist. Anduril's trying to break that paradigm and show that we need to build useful building blocks that can apply across air, land, sea, space, subspace, cyberspace, and even in the underground domain, which heretofore has been more or less impossible to operate in.
Yeah, that's really exciting, because the faster we can get this technology into our soldiers' hands, the better, so that they can, we can protect them and those around us. So that's exciting. Some of your interest in defense technology was driven by your time at USC ICT, the labs, the MXR labs.
That's right.
Where you built hardware for research for PTSD. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Definitely. This is something that I am really proud of, and it was a very small part of my career, but it was really influential, being one of the first real jobs that I had before I started Oculus. So before anyone was paying attention to me, I worked at the ICT Mixed Reality Lab, which is an Army affiliate research center, working on a variety of different programs to help the U.S. military. The one that I'm most proud of working on was an Army project called BraveMind. And BraveMind was a program that treated veterans who were suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder using virtual reality exposure therapy. Now, I was just a lab technician. My job was to build hardware, design hardware, calibrate hardware, and kind of keep systems going and moving. So I wasn't one of the kind of mastermind architects of the program, but at the time it was running through trials. It was then rolled out to a lot of VA installations across the country. I was very proud of the fact that that they actually started using Oculus hardware years later when I started Oculus and started getting that out there. And I think it's a really powerful tool, but at the same time, it taught me a lot about how there's a lot of inefficiency in the way that the government designs and procures technology, and how there's room for the private sector to lead innovation by moving much faster and using their own funds to build things that are too often left to taxpayers to fund, whether it works or not.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Speaking of that, is a little bit about, modernization. So, you believe in modernization of U.S. military technology, and that it's a prerequisite to be able to preserving our way of life. Can you talk a little bit about what you see as some of the most important technologies that the U.S. to maintain a strategic advantage over our adversaries?
I think that one of the most important things that we're going to see as a trend in the future is leveraging autonomy and artificial intelligence to make systems that do things that no manned system can even do. So it's not about reducing costs, it's about increasing capability. And it's also going to be about being able to make decisions much faster than our adversaries. My personal opinion, and there are people who disagree, smart people who disagree, but my opinion is that the days of the United States having a massive advantage over our adversaries strictly through hardware advancements are over. We're not going to live in a world where the US has jets that are twice as fast, where we have submarines that go twice as far. This idea of winning only through hardware capabilities, I think, is gone, because our adversaries are so adept at copying our technology and rapidly using it for themselves. Anything we do in the hardware domain, they're going to try to copy as quickly as possible. And so we might be a few percent faster, or a few percent further, or a few percent more efficient. But these massive advantages that we have enjoyed for the better part of a century are kind of gone. Where we can have massive advantages are in our command and control structures, in our data control structures, in our ability to see a situation and respond in minutes where it might take an adversary hours or even days to respond. And if we are able to do that, if we can build systems that tie the best that we have together into one cohesive whole of force reaction that moves as quickly as possible and makes the best decisions possible at every instant in that conflict, I think that we can have equal hardware and still dominate anyone who tries to work against our interests. And that's where I see things moving in the future. Not just hardware advancement, but the ability to use it much better through intelligent software.
I think that's a really great point, because, even on the commercial side, the more as products become commercialized, people, to your point, start copying things. You always have to stay that 2 steps ahead. because then you continue to have that advantage and be able to provide that premium position as other companies.
Absolutely.
So that's a great point. So so you talked a little bit about AI ML. What other technologies do you see that is really needed to be driven in the battle space?
So I think that there's a lot of interesting opportunities in virtual reality and augmented reality. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I started Oculus. I'm still a VR nut. I believe that virtual reality is not just the next computational platform, but the final computational platform. It is the only form of media and display interaction that can fully encompass every other form of media, whether it's music or film or text or immersive 3D simulations. It's the only thing that can present to a person any experience that you could imagine experiencing. And so for that reason, I've always loved VR, because even if other things come along in the meanwhile, in the long run, it's going to be an incredible way to perceive our world and allow us to experience the world in new ways, and also to do things like having people around the world who are thousands of miles apart feel as if they're working together, sitting at exactly the same table on a really tightly integrated problem. And that's one of the reasons that Anduril is working in that space as well, outside of just our autonomy and artificial intelligence. One area that I think Anduril has not been doing a lot of work, but I am still very excited about, is in the biotechnology space. There are a lot of very interesting advancements that we've done in terms of making people safer, more robust to injury, more robust to psychological and physical injuries. And I think that the United States can lead in this area as well, making the human warfighter much more resilient, making our canine warfighters more resilient. And I think especially on the defensive side, building tools that protect us from biological weapons that I expect to be deployed by our adversaries. It's become so incredibly easy in the modern day to engineer bioweapons that would have been unthinkable 10 or 20 years ago, to the point where you can have a very small number of people working in a rogue state, creating capabilities that previously would have required a Manhattan Project. And so I think the future of warfare is unfortunately going to be defined largely by defense against biological weapons that are taking advantage of those advances in biotechnology.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to use some of those VR on my golf game too, out in the golf course, to help with my water shot. So maybe that's,
well, you know what?
There's down the day.
There's some great software out there. So there's some amazing VR golf software out there. Some of it's less realistic, more like mini golf. And then there's some advanced simulations that are basically a perfect replica. You can even use a weighted virtual club to get your swing just right. So I actually don't play golf anymore. I did many years ago, but you see this scar on the side of my bad facial hair. Yeah. Someone hit me in the face with a 9-iron and unhinged my jaw. And it was I have not played golf since then, but by all means, stick with it. Just be careful.
All right. So the last question I have for you is, if you have one message you want the audience to take away today, what would that be?
Well, it depends on where you are in the audience. I would say, especially my message to people who are younger, who are starting their careers, and who are not necessarily locked into what they're going to do with their lives. A lot of people say to follow your passion. That's good if your passion is something that is useful and if it benefits society. I think the one problem we have in society is that there's a lot of people who are passionate about things that are fun. I was one of those people. I mean, I started Oculus because I was passionate about gaming, and I love video games. I love gaming. But looking back, I think that I would have done better to not follow my passion and instead do what I'm doing with Anduril, which is to follow the greatest need, to identify a problem that I can solve that other people are not necessarily working on to the extent they should. So my advice to people is, don't follow your passion, follow the need. Look at the problems that your country has, that your city has, that your state has, and ask if there's something that you would rather do and look back on later in life and feel proud about working on. If you go and you work on augmented reality mustache emojis for a search engine company, how proud are you going to be? Will history remember you? No. And I think that people are much better served by following something that is really useful. I happen to believe that national security is one of the most uneven industries in terms of the amount of good that a smart person can do versus the number of smart people that are getting into the industry. So I highly encourage people to, if they're listening to me, think about what you're doing right now and ask if there's something you could be doing that's more important, whether it's in national security or somewhere else.
To Palmer, I can tell that you're very passionate about what you do. You got a lot of energy, really exciting. So really interested to hear more about where you take your company and the exciting products you provide for our warfighters. So thank you.
Thank you. Keep your eye on the sky.
All right. Thank you.